Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
He needs care and treatment.
You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show. Brought to you by Daryl May of Trustee Properties on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Is this a great country or what?
Locking down the middle of the day. Live from the Raising Cane studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Raising Cane studio downtown in the capital city on this Tuesday. Means we're brought to you by Daryl May of Trustee Properties. Hope your work week's off to a good start. Jacob Beck, Cassie Spazzali back there on the ones and twos. Fired up, you're here with us. Got our Tuesday regulars coming up here. 30 minutes from right now, Glen Wesco 24/7 will be along. Colin Jeter, the LSU Alumni Association, former LSU tight end, here at 2 o'clock. Sharif Ishak talking Saints at 2:30, so plenty to do. Let's crank it up. How we do it every day with our Genesis opening drive.
It's time for Hunt's opening drive, presented by Genesis of Baton Rouge.
Yesterday, I talked about some of the positives with LSU's offense. A lot of it was big picture discussion. I prefaced the entire discussion with, hey, 20 points is not enough. That's not good enough. Turnovers, not great. Miscommunications, not what you're looking for. Was the quarterback perfect? No. Was the running game dominant? No. But if you look at the entirety of the body of work on Saturday night, there were some real positives. It was a big picture discussion. I laid out drive charts and did that whole shebang. And if you want to go back and listen to that, you can certainly catch that on demand at Hunt on LSU. But that was yesterday's kind of gut reaction to the game. What I wanted to do to move that discussion forward today was to talk about some specifics and some numbers in terms of the running game. And I just thought watching the game that LSU ran it a little bit better. I thought watching the game that there were some wrinkles. I thought watching the game that it was an improvement. Was it dominant? No. Did they grind South Carolina into a paste? No. Is South Carolina a great run defense? No. I'm not here to sell you a bill of goods that's worthless. It's not great, but you can't go from awful to great like that. You gotta take some steps, and maybe this is a step. Maybe it all goes away on Saturday in Nashville. But let me lay some things out for you that I noticed in the stat sheet and what I watched with my eyes that were encouraging. We talked about this. They ran it 30 times for 166 yards. 166 yards. Highest rushing total of the season for LSU. 5.5 yards per carry, highest total of the season for LSU. That's better than Louisiana Tech, better than Southeastern, and it was in an SEC game. I'll take it. 4 times, LSU had runs over 15 yards. Caden Durham had 2 of them. Juwan Johnson had 1. Garrett Nussmeier had 1. All of that is positive. There are times where you might look and go, well, the quarterback who never really runs ran for that yard. Is that really part of the offense? No, I'm not going to say that today, because anytime Garrett Nussmeier wants to tuck the football below his shoulder and go get some yards, I'm for that, because we've been missing it for a year and a half. So I think it was good. They committed to it 30 times. It was good. They ran for 166 yards. It was good. They ran for 5.5 yards per carry. It was good that they gained 15 yards 4 different times with 3 different players. All that was excellent. Caden Durham, he's your lead back. Was hurt against Southeastern, missed the Ole Miss game, came back against South Carolina. You look at his stat sheet, and it's not one he's going to write home about. 15 carries for 70 yards. Okay. We've seen LSU running backs run for 250. So what are we talking about 70 yards here? Well, one thing that Brian Kelly has harped on, and I generally take him for his word in press conferences, they know they're not going to be a dominant run team. They're not going to all of a sudden start averaging 212 yards a night on the ground. But they want to be efficient in their runs, right? You want to be efficient in your run. What does that mean? Well, 3-yard gains in neutral downs are efficient. 1st and 10, 3-yard gain, that'll work. 2nd and 6, you get 3, that'll work. And then when you talk about runs that accomplish a first down, even if you don't get 3 yards, that's an efficient run. The first play of the game, you'll probably remember this. We talked about it. LSU got under center, had Caden Durham in the backfield, and they ran an under center running play. Now, it got blown up in the backfield. Dylan Stewart got at the tackle for loss. So it was terrible, but they tried that. Stuffed. The next play went for 1 yard on the ground from Caden Durham. So the first 2 runs were not efficient. Tackle for loss in a 1-yard gain. But after those 2 runs, it was efficient. After those two runs, 9 of Durham's next 11 runs were efficient runs. They either gained 3 yards or gained a first down. 9 of 11. That's accomplishing things. There were a couple of 3-yard runs on first down. Again, not great, but it's better than losing 2 yards. Puts you in a neutral down moving forward. There were a couple gains that were only 1 yard, but it was on 3rd and 1 or 2nd and 1, and you got it, so you'll take that. And he busted a couple for more than 10 yards. So 9 of 11 runs over the course of really almost 3 quarters were efficient. That's a good thing. Then you go to another aspect of this, which is the creativity. And I mentioned this yesterday, but I'll reiterate it. The first snap of the game was under center. That's something new. You saw moments later, you did a direct snap to Juwan Johnson, and that direct snap to Juwan Johnson, Malachi Lane was on the field. He's a walk-on, running back, fullback, whatever you want to call him. He's big and physical. He's out there to block, and you saw Juwan Johnson get 9 yards on one of those Wildcat snaps. Then you've got Jack Pyburn, who played some fullback as well. So you saw fullbacks, you saw under center, you saw Wildcat. All of that is good. Harlem Berry ran the ball very well against Ole Miss in the game 2 weeks ago. Comes in, he gets 3 carries in the first quarter of the game. I think that's good. None of that is transformational. This is not Gus Malzahn bringing out the Wildcat with Derek McFadden and Peyton Hillis and running for 250 a game. This is not transformational offense. These are not mind-blowing adjustments, but they are adjustments. Again, as I started this conversation, I'm not expecting LSU to go from we can't run the ball at all, we gained 50 yards against Ole Miss, the worst run defense in the SEC, to, okay, we got Fournette again. Like, I'm not asking you to do that. Give me some willingness to change, some willingness to adapt, and some production. You saw all of that over that course. And what you also saw was balance. LSU finished the game statistically with 33 passes and 30 rushes. They passed the ball for 254. They ran for 166. That's pretty good balance. I went further on the balance, and I talked about first down play calls. You had 32 snaps on first down. 32. 19 passes, 13 runs. It's not 50-50, but I don't know that I need 50-50. LSU's better at throwing the ball than they are at running the ball. So skew towards what you're better at, but keep it balanced. 19 passes to 13 runs. I actually broke it down by quarter. You had 4 runs and 5 passes in the first quarter. You had 4 runs and 6 passes in the second quarter. You had 3 runs and 4 passes in the third quarter. You had 2 runs and 4 passes in the fourth quarter. So the game was always pretty close. You felt like you were in control. The game was always pretty close, and you never strayed. Early, you were right down the middle. Late, you were essentially right down the middle. And ultimately, because every quarter you passed it 1 or 2 more times than you ran it, it skewed and you went 6 more passes than runs on first down. But that's okay with me. Like, you're better at throwing the ball than you are at running it. As long as that 32 doesn't go 26-6, then you're predictable. And I don't want to see it 26-6 in the run category as well, because you're predictable and you're not as good at it. So to me, all of this was positive. South Carolina's not very good on defense. They're 11th in the SEC in rushing defense. They're 12th in yards per carry allowed. They're 8th in tackles for loss. Only Arkansas gives up more big plays on the ground than South Carolina. This is not, again, meant to tell you that LSU has discovered something earth-shattering. But it was a step forward. It was absolutely a step forward. Because guess what? South Carolina's not great on run defense, but neither is Southeastern, okay? And you're getting better. You took the bye week. You got a little healthier. You lined up your offensive line the way you wanted to. You committed to a game plan that included balance, that included creativity, and then ultimately you produced. And it was a step in the right direction for the ground game. I thought it was pretty good. I know that everyone is cranky about the 20 points. And trust me, I'm right there with you about 20 points. And I know that there are a lot of people that are cranky about the quarterback and that are cranky about the offensive coordinator and kind of cranky about everything. And I talked about that yesterday. And I understand the expectation that goes into things at LSU. You're graded on a championship curve. This was really the first 30 minutes of yesterday's show. But I'm going to take this game in a vacuum and say, okay, that's a step forward. But what do you have to do when you take a step forward? You have to take another one. So you got to go on the road against Vanderbilt and continue this. Continue to commit to the run. Continue to be productive in the run. Continue to have efficient runs. Continue to do things differently. What you didn't see in this game was a lot of Xavion Thomas, not a lot of jet sweep, not a lot of motion of him into the backfield. That's still in there. When you're awesome at running the ball, if you're the Pony Express with SMU in the late 80s and you can just run the same, triple option stuff with Dickerson and James, just stick with that and you're awesome. When you're Les Miles LSU and you can toss it to Leonard Fournette against Syracuse and South Carolina and whoever else you play and Texas Tech and run for 305, you don't have to do anything different. This offense is not that. So you've got to come up with some wrinkles, got to do things a little bit differently. And again, to put a big bow on this offense from Saturday for one final time before we push off the dock and go straight for Vanderbilt. If you hit a couple of these other plays in the passing game and that scoreboard ticks up and Nussmeier's statistics tick up and you pair this ground attack with it and all of a sudden it's 34 points with the 460 yards of offense, it feels a little bit different. You only have one defense left on your meaningful schedule. I'm not counting Western Kentucky. One defense worse than that remaining on your schedule. It's Arkansas. They're putrid. Everybody else will give you more resistance in South Carolina. So you got to get better. But this was a step in the right direction, and I was happy with a lot of aspects of what LSU went with on the ground on Saturday night. If you're looking for our LSU coverage, you can certainly find it at LouisianaSports.net. I've got a story up right now about the ground game. It's there on the homepage for free. Matt Flynn's got a phenomenal film breakdown that's on the front page of our site. They're going to do that weekly. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Taking former NFL quarterback's word for film. It's pretty good stuff. Let's go check that out for free at LouisianaSports.net. We've also got Saints coverage from Ross Jackson on LouisianaSports.net. And I'm going to get into some of the things that he wrote today about Spencer Rattler, including going back 2 weeks ago to my ultimatum to Spencer Rattler. And we'll talk about what the Saints need to do at quarterback moving forward. That's next.
The Hunt Palmer Show. You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Daryl May of Trusty Properties. Looking for land to hunt or build? Call Daryl May at Trusty Properties.
Tuesday shows brought to you by Daryl May of Trusty Properties, licensed realtor in Louisiana and Mississippi. You're thinking, why Daryl? Looking to buy or sell a home in Louisiana or Mississippi? Well, I'll tell you. He's got years of experience as a former builder and a trusted realtor, so he brings unmatched insight into every Baton Rouge real estate transaction. He's got a really deep understanding about solid construction because he did it for 2 decades. Craftsmanship that allows clients to make confident and informed decisions about the homes that they're purchasing. He's got experience. He's got integrity. When that comes together, you've got Daryl, your advantage in the Baton Rouge real estate market. So if you're in Baton Rouge looking to buy or sell a home, contact Daryl May of Trusty Properties, licensed realtor in Louisiana and Mississippi. 2 weeks ago, I sat here in this very chair and I said, okay, Spencer Rattler has had 10 starts over 2 seasons of work. He has got 2 weeks to hang on to this starting quarterback job with the New Orleans Saints. At that point, I was not suggesting that Spencer Rattler was a failure, that he was a lost cause, that he had no chance of improving and becoming the Saints franchise quarterback. I wasn't even blaming them for getting off to an 0-4 start. I really wasn't concerned with 0-4. At that point, I was looking at the product on the field, which was very vanilla, very dink and dunk, not very productive, wasn't winning games. It was just safe, comfortable, and fine. And safe, comfortable, and fine is okay for a rookie that you just drafted with nothing behind him. When you're talking about a guy who's had 10 starts and has a second-round pick right behind him, at some point after 10 starts, I'm going to need to see a little bit more than safe and unproductive. So I said 2 weeks ago, you're playing the Giants, you're playing the Patriots in the Dome. You got 2 weeks to show me something or I'm going to shuck. Like, that was my opinion at that point. And I stand by that today. And now you look at the last 2 weeks, and with the new information I have, new opinion on the matter is you absolutely stick with Spencer Rattler, who is showing you something as the Saints starter. It's not great. It's not eye-opening, but there are absolutely positively strides being made for Spencer Rattler at this point. Ross Jackson's piece on LouisianaSports.net lays this out wonderfully. So I'm stealing his information here, but it goes right in line with the segment I knew I was going to do today because I gave that ultimatum independent of anything Ross had written 2 weeks ago on this show. But Ross just happened to go exactly in the lane I was going to drive in, so I'll take his stuff from LouisianaSports.net. Weeks 1 through 4, Spencer Rattler, yards per attempt, 5.2. That's tied for 30th in the NFL, yards per attempt. That completely lines up with what you were watching on the field, just a bunch of swing passes, dump-offs, check downs, nothing exciting, nothing very productive. Air yards per pass attempt, 7.1, 23rd in the NFL. You can win in the NFL being very safe. You can't win in the NFL when you never hit the big play. And the Saints were the only team in the NFL to that point that had not hit a big play in the air. The only team. Well, then you look at the last 2 weeks where I said, Spencer, I need to see something. And you've seen something. Yards per attempt over the last 2 weeks, 7.9. That's tied for 10th in the NFL, from 30th to 10th. Net yards per attempt, he was 30th in that stat, tied for 8th, 7.2. 30th to 8th. And then you go air yards per pass attempt. He went from 7.1 up 7.4, but you're talking about 5-spot jump. It's not huge, but it's 5 spots. But it's getting better. It's improving. And you saw the big play to Shaheed down the right sideline 2 weeks ago, and you saw the big play to Olave to start the game on Sunday for 53 yards on the Saints' first snap. You're starting to see something. And what I really liked about the throw to Olave, it was fractionally underthrown. But there was a little bit of pressure. He stepped up and then got behind it and put the ball up in the air. There was good pocket awareness, good pocket movement, the correct read, the proper throw. It wasn't right on the money, but it was everything right up to that point. And I feel like Spencer Rattler has earned himself significant more time. The bye week is 3 weeks away. Perhaps that's an opportunity if you don't see more growth from here over the next 3 weeks, because you feel like you want to get a look at Shuck, but you don't want to stunt growth just for a look. If I see the same growth over the next 3 weeks that I saw over the past 2 weeks, now all of a sudden you're really getting somewhere. Spencer Rattler has never looked overmatched on the NFL field in terms of he can't move well enough. He can't make that throw. He can't do this. The game's too fast. It was just too safe, in my opinion. And there's reason for that. You don't want to just throw a green player to the wolves, but you've got to break out of that shell at some point. And I feel like you're seeing it. It's not explosive. It's not something that's just, boom, it's completely different overnight. But it's those baby steps. It's kind of the same thing I was talking about with LSU in the previous segment. This is just bigger stage and a far better level of play. So, again, I don't feel like this is a necessary thing to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. The odds that Spencer Rattler becomes a Pro Bowl quarterback who leads the Saints to multiple playoff berths and a deep run in the playoffs that results in getting to a Super Bowl, like the odds of him becoming that are not very good because they're not very good for all the quarterbacks in the NFL. I remind you, Josh Allen's played in exactly none Super Bowls. Okay? So it's really hard to get to that. And we're all kind of still considering Rattler like next in line. It was Breeze, and then whatever was between that, and then it was Carr. That was a failure, and then this. And you're still close enough to Breeze where everyone's kind of grasping for that, right? And that's not fair. But you're trying to find the next guy. And he doesn't look like a guy right now, but it's still not to the point where I'm going to rule it out. I'm not suggesting you have to rule it out to go to Shuck, but I need to see a plateau or a drop-off. Or I need to see a group around him that doesn't believe. And I don't think you're even close to that. We'll talk to Sharif Ishak an hour from now, and I'll get his thoughts on that. But, like, I see a team that's playing hard. I see a team that likely feels like he's improving. I know you've got a coach that believes he's improving. Kellen Moore talked about that yesterday. This is a quote in Ross's piece. Kellen Moore of Spencer Rattler says, I thought his pocket movement was phenomenal throughout the entire game. The first play was a great example of him subtly moving in the pocket, giving ourselves an opportunity to make that play. Had a really good scramble to Alvin on 3rd and 3, 4, somewhere in that range. You're talking about a coach who's seeing some things that he likes from a quarterback, and that's his position. It's not like Dennis Allen is saying that. Kellen Moore is saying that. A guy who won a ton of games in college, played the position in the NFL, coached it in the NFL, now is quarterback's coach into a head coach. Offensive coordinator between that, obviously. And so he's going to take notes and have a tougher grading scale for quarterbacks than some other coaches that might be former special teams guys or defensive coaches or whatever the case may be. So ultimately, I gave the ultimatum. I've got that 2 weeks worth of information. I felt like when I gave the ultimatum, it was likely I would sit here and say, hey, it's time for Shuck. I don't believe that right now. It is not time for Tyler Shuck. I still think ultimately you're going to give him a look at some point, but you don't have to do that right now. You've got a lot of time in front of you. It's only mid-October. You've got a bye week that's significantly in front of you, considering that some teams have already had a bye. Like yours is still 3 weeks away. It's a later bye after 10 weeks. You've got enough real estate to keep Spencer Rattler moving. And I'm not going to napalm some development just because I took a guy in the second round. This is a difficult situation for Kellen Moore to inherit that you've got to handle very delicately. And the reason you were going to go with Spencer, one of the reasons I think it made sense to go with Spencer Rattler to start this thing was it would be easier to go from Rattler to Shuck than it would be to go from Shuck to Rattler. And you don't have to make that call right this second. I think now, with new information to go forward and make a prognostication on this quarterback spot, that I feel like now, I still think it will be, I still think it's going to be likely that Shuck starts multiple games this year. Because I think it's likely that Rattler doesn't take a meteoric rise. But right now, I'm not upsetting that apple cart. I think you stay where you are. You continue to move forward. Kellen Moore says that all the time, regardless of what he may be thinking or what the discussions are internally. I think that's where the Saints are right now. And it's exciting and fun to go to the high quarterback draft pick, and the Saints never get to do that. Saints fans never get to do that. And it's one of the great hope-filled aspects of being an NFL fan is, could this guy be the next quarterback? And when you've got a quarterback that lost all his games last year and is a mid-round pick, he doesn't quite get the same perception of hope that the second-round pick does. But right now, he's earned the right to move forward and to continue to be the starting quarterback for this team. I'll reassess things probably in 3 weeks, depending on how things go. And to be quite honest with you, I'm not that married to tying this to the win-loss record. I just want to see how it looks. I'm going to need Chris Olave to make some catches instead of have the ball hit off his hands. I'm going to need the ground game to be a little bit better than it was. And that ecosystem we talk about to develop quarterbacks needs to continue to progress. But Spencer Rattler, with my ultimatum, that I'm sure he was very concerned about, by the way, with my ultimatum saying, hey, you got 2 weeks to prove something, I think he did. And I think you move forward with Spencer Rattler as your quarterback here for the foreseeable future. Tyler Shuck may get his shot this year, but not right now. I think it's Spencer Rattler's team. All right, we'll move forward. Glen West, Go 24/7, going to talk Tigers with us when we come back.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge. GenesisofBatonRouge.com is that website. Every car that's on the lot is online at GenesisofBatonRouge.com. Your buying experience at Genesis of Baton Rouge is going to be luxury in every way. You go to the lot, airline at Piku. You're not going to be ambushed by aggressive salespersons that are just pushing and upselling and taking advantage. That's never going to happen at Genesis of Baton Rouge. They're going to treat you like a guest, not a customer. They're going to make sure that every need that you have is, and every question that you have is answered properly. And they're going to teach you about this great line of vehicles. Every single one's an IHA top safety pick, luxury brand, and they're going to get you behind the wheel of what fits you right for your situation, whether that's a sedan or an SUV. Once you pick that car out, you'll go into their climate-controlled area. They'll pull the car in, see all those bells and whistles. They'll give you America's best warranty. They'll send you on your way, understanding that your next 3 years, all your maintenance is going to be done complimentary and valet. Just part of the experience at Genesis of Baton Rouge. Go by and see them, airline at Piku, or check out that inventory online, GenesisofBatonRouge.com, GenesisofBatonRouge.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Daryl May of Trustee Properties. Looking for land to hunt or build? Call Daryl May at Trustee Properties.
Looking for that hunting land outside the city, maybe a secondary home or property? Daryl May, Trustee Properties, can help you with looking for 30 acres, 300 acres. Daryl May, Trustee Properties is a name you can trust. Glen West, Go 24/7, covers the Tigers, football, basketball, baseball, recruiting. They're all over it there at Go 24/7. He joins us on Tuesdays. Glenn, how we doing?
Doing great, Hunt. How about yourself?
Good. Curious. You have Twitter followers that'll tweet at you from time to time. You got a message board full of subscribers. Like, what was the reaction to Saturday? Great defense, terrible offense, improving offense. Like, what do you feel like the fan base is feeling?
Yeah, I think it's still a pretty contentious fan base from an offensive perspective. Definitely, I think there was progress made this last weekend from LSU's offense, but when you only score 20 points at the end of the day, I think that's something that really sticks with fans. And look, they haven't surpassed the 20-point mark in any of their three SEC games so far. So while I thought there was some progress on Saturday and something to build on, you certainly would like to see the score uptick here going forward, and it's going to have to. And I think that's maybe a general consensus with the people we're engaging with on our message boards and things of that nature.
What was the most encouraging thing about the offense?
I think probably the passing game. I liked a lot of what Garrett Nussmeier and the guys were able to do. Obviously, you can't excuse. There's just no excuse for the two picks that he threw in that game. Those are just two decisions that were poor and just two bad throws. But I thought that outside of that, they were able to move the offense well with the passing game. They got Trey'Dez Green involved, which was great to see. Kind of have his breakout game as a Tiger. Kyle Parker did a really nice job as well in this game, picking up some of the slack in the middle of the field that was left behind with Aaron Anderson out. And so, and then I just thought from a pure throwing perspective, it was a encouraging sign from Nussmeier. I thought there was a little more velocity on his deep balls. I thought the ball placement there was pretty solid on the one to Hilton and another one to Nick Anderson in the end zone that kind of fell incomplete as well. But it's good to see that they're still taking those shots. And on top of that, I think I really like the balance between the run and the pass. I think it was 33 passes to 30 rushes, and so you're getting some equal balance there with the run and the pass, and they were able to move the ball, I think, pretty efficiently overall on the ground with 166 yards. You had guys like Caden Durham, averaging 5 or 6 yards a carry, and just continuing to move the offense forward and not getting behind the chains, I think was all a step in the right direction. And now you've got to just be able to finish off some of these drives with touchdowns and not turning the ball over or having to settle for field goals in the red zone.
Let's talk about the defense. Lenora Sellers and company not too successful. They only came up with 10 points. What'd you think?
Yeah, I actually lost a bet with lunch here because I had bet our guy Sonny Ship that Norris Sellers would have more rushing yards than Garrett Nussmeier. And that was something that proved not to be the case because LSU's defense did a really nice job of bottling up Norris Sellers, not letting him obviously escape the pocket and be kind of the improvisational guy that he is with his legs. And so I owe lunch to Sonny here over the next couple weeks. I'm not sure when we're going to do that, but that was good to see them because that was obviously something they're going to face here over the next couple weeks, and that was a good precursor, I think, to how they're going to maybe have some success against these more mobile quarterbacks.
Was Sonny banking on a bunch of sack yardage? How is
yes,
he? Okay.
He was. Yes, he actually approached this subject to me, so. He came to me with the bet, and I said, "Hey, man, I'll take that 100 times out of 100." And unfortunately, Garrett Nussmeier, as soon as he pulled off that 21-yard run there, it was great to see in the moment. And then about 3 seconds later, I was like, "Oh no, I think I'm going to have to owe Sonny a meal here because of it."
Well, if you go back, there's somebody that tweeted out, I think it was Cole Kubelik maybe, that said Norris Sellers actually ran like 605 yards or something. But it was all sideways and backwards, so none of it really counted. So if you want to counter with that, you can. You can do that.
Maybe I'll approach that to Sonny. Yeah, that'll be a good one.
All right, so let's go to Vanderbilt, LSU and Vanderbilt on Saturday. Vanderbilt's a favorite. Does that surprise you?
I don't think so because I do think Vanderbilt's offense has played really well, and you can only play who you played so far, and really the one team that they've played that I think is pretty solid or pretty good on their schedule has been Alabama, and they struggled in that game. But I do think being at home is going to help them. And look, I mean, LSU has to go on the road here and prove that it can put up some points. And I don't know how many they're going to be able to score, at Vandy. I think there are some ways to have some success against the Vanderbilt defense, but the way that Pavia has played so far, I would imagine that those guys feel pretty confident and pretty comfortable with the way that they're performing offensively and are going to put up some points at home. So I'm not too surprised by the fact that they're favorites at home, but I think it also is just a sign that these SEC games and these SEC teams are just not as far apart as they have been in maybe previous years. And I think there's a lot more parity in the conference. I think that was something Brian Kelly was asked and talked about on Monday, is the average, I think, score or distance between scores is about 10 points in the SEC this year, where it was 17 as little as a year ago. And so this is not your Vanderbilt team that you grew up watching if you were really any age. And so they're definitely, I think, on a nice run here with Clark Lee, and it's going to be a challenging game for LSU to pull off.
How do you feel, like, we'll drill down a little tighter because you mentioned it there, but how do you feel that Vanderbilt's offense is going to perform against LSU's defense? Last year, Pavia struggled to do much. They scored 17 points in that game. How do you feel like that matchup looks on paper?
Yeah, I think they've had some success, with not only just using Pavia with his legs, but they've been a pretty good passing down team as well, passing down offense as well. They've converted a lot on third downs. I think they're number 2 or number 3 in the country in third down conversion percentage. And with a mobile quarterback like Pavia, we saw it a couple weeks ago against Ole Miss. Maybe that's something that LSU's defense has struggled with in just that one game, but still, like, I think that's something that Vanderbilt's going to try to attack. They're going to try to be consistently moving the ball on third and down and manageable. They've been able to get themselves, I think, in a lot of third down and manageable situations, and been able to set themselves up for good scoring opportunities because of that. So they have a pretty solid complement of skilled position players too. I mean, I did a little bit of a deep dive into them yesterday, and I think it's like 6 or 7 different receivers and running backs have at least 9 or 10 carries on their team. So they're getting the ball to the backfield a lot with their skills position players and trying to let them make plays. And then obviously Pavia is the guy that they design a lot of quarterback runs for. So it's really going to start with the run, I think, for LSU. And I would say if there's an area that LSU has shown a little bit of slippage in recent weeks, it's been the run game. I mean, Norris Sellers didn't kill LSU with the run on the ground, but some of the running backs did have some success in that game, and LSU missed a few tackles in that game as well. So that's something they're certainly going to work to shore up, and I think that's something Vanderbilt's probably going to look at on film and say, hey, maybe this is something we can have some success with on the ground.
How do you think it goes on Saturday? I'll leave it there.
Yeah, I think it really comes down to a couple of things. I think it comes down to, can LSU's defense continue to play well against mobile quarterback like Diego Pavio, like they did last weekend with Sellers? Can they shut him down and make him beat you with his arm? I think that's something that LSU's defense will try to do in this game, and I think they have the guys in the back half of the defense that are going to be capable of shutting that passing game down. So trying to make them as one-dimensional as possible is going to be the game plan defensively. And then offensively, can you build on what you did well last week? And they didn't score as many points as they probably should have, but they still walked out with 420 yards of offense against South Carolina. Is that something they continue to build on and maybe capitalize more on those possessions and not have some of the silly self-inflicted mistakes that they had against Carolina? Because if you go down there and you turn the ball over a couple times in the red zone, you give them extra possessions, I don't think it's going to turn out well for LSU. So they've got to be cleaner offensively. They've got to continue to, I think, attack the vertical passing game, continue to show balance between the run and the pass, and try to move the ball in between the 20s like they did last weekend.
All right, we'll see how it goes in Nashville. I know that you went out and saw a little bit of baseball over the weekend as well. Jay Johnson's team out on the diamond. Any nuggets you want to pass along from Friday or Saturday, Sunday? Yeah,
I think the infield has, going to be a revolving door of players. Like I think I was texting you that Braden Simpson's a guy I've seen over at first base. It looks really good at that spot. John Pearson
won't be the last time.
I know John Pearson and Trent Caraway are kind of getting the reps at third base right now. I think you're going to see, continue revolving door there. I think maybe one of the questions I still have is at the catcher position. They have a couple of guys there that I think they're going to go to with Cade Arambidi, and I think Omar Cerna is a really talented young freshman as well. But I like the pieces that they have in place, but it's just going to be about what they do on the infield and how those guys are rotating in and out over the next 6 weeks. I think is going to be really interesting to follow. We know the guys in the outfield. We know that's going to be set. I think I haven't personally seen the whole ton of like the big arms pitch yet in the first weekend, but excited to see some of those guys get out there and start ramping up their process for this fall as well. So we'll be out there as much as possible for fall ball, but it's just going to be a little trickier, when you got, mixing in basketball season starting here soon, and certainly the home stretch of their football season as well.
For sure. You can check it all out at Go 24/7. Glen West with us on Tuesdays. Thanks, man.
All right. Thanks, Hunt.
Here's Glen West with us every single Tuesday at 1:30. Tuesday show is brought to you by Daryl May of Trusty Properties. Come back, close out the hour with a really, really cool story that we'll get to that surfaced yesterday on the internet. We'll get to that next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. David Duvall and his team, 30 years redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. Closet space can be a big, big deal. And if you live in an older home, it just may not have been built with the closet space that you need. And now if you got children, you got suitcases, suits, all kinds of shoes, maybe someone moved in recently, that's the case, and you just don't have the closet space that you need, but you don't want to move, David Duvall and his team are happy to help you with that. They can come in and they can build you a new closet. They're perfectly capable of doing that. They're licensed, bonded, and insured. Or they may be able to just use your current space more efficiently by adding some features that you don't currently have. That's something you can learn what the best option is for you when you have that sit down and that consultation that's free with David Duvall. So go to onebathandclosets.com. See pictures of their great work. You can see some of the closet spaces that they've done. They are functional, they are customized, and they are beautiful when done. They're going to do it right the first time and leave the competition behind. And they got financing options available. So if you're looking to finance 0% up to 18 months, David can work with you on that front as well. It's One Bath and Closets. Find it all online. onebathandclosets.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Daryl May of Trusty Properties. Looking for land to hunt or build? Call Daryl May at Trusty Properties.
Daryl May was a builder for 2 decades here in Baton Rouge, so he knows the ins and outs of home construction, certainly in this part of the world, this city specifically. And he's got that expertise. Now he just, instead of building them, helps people buy and sell them. So if you're looking for a realtor that not only knows the market, but knows what he's looking for and what you should be looking for in terms of construction, Daryl can help you with that, and he is happy to do it. So reach out to him at Trusty Properties. Daryl May, licensed in Louisiana and Mississippi. Daryl May at Trusty Properties, that's a name you can trust. A very cool story that emerged last night regarding Greg Brooks. Of course, Greg Brooks, former Tiger who has gone through just an incredible battle with health concerns since being diagnosed with that brain tumor. And recently got engaged, and then there was a story that came out that the Atlanta Falcons, became aware of Greg's story from watching on the Pivot, Ryan Clark's podcast, and it was brought to their attention, and Raheem Morris's wife saw it and said, we needed to do something to reach out, and they did. And they put together a great day for Greg Brooks. He was able to go to Atlanta to the team facility. He was able to watch practice, meet the team. He was presented with a Brooks Falcons jersey. He was able to spend some time with former teammate Felipe Franks, who was with him at Arkansas before he moved on to LSU, and Franks went on to the NFL. And you could see how much it meant to Greg in the video that ESPN put together. He called it one of the greatest moments of his life, the greatest experiences of his life, and Falcons were very gracious, generous with their time, and included him in a lot of things there at the facility. And I just thought that was such a great gesture because, Greg doesn't have any ties to the Falcons. It's not like he was drafted by the Falcons and then this happened and now they're allowing him to do that. They just reached out because it was the right thing to do. If you're watching on YouTube right now, that Cassie just pulled up, he said it was one of the greatest experiences of his life. And then you got all the Falcons that were coming to say what's up, and that's got Michael Penix, who obviously is kind of the face of that organization right now, and you got Michael Jarrell, one of their tackles, that came up and said him, and all the guys were there to kind of dap him up, and Greg spoke openly and freely, and it's really admirable to watch Greg Brooks go out and do things so publicly. I can't put myself in Greg's shoes with what he is going through, but clearly he is very compromised physically. He's in a wheelchair and his speech has been severely impaired. And that's obvious to everyone, including him, who goes out there. And I think it might be in some people's instincts to just kind of stay in the background and just kind of stay home. That's no way to live. And he is out in public and he's doing things like this when given the opportunity. And I think that's really, really cool to see. And I think it was really, really cool of the Falcons. So just like a huge hat tip all around to the Atlanta Falcons, to Greg Brooks, to his family, to Raheem Morrison and his wife, and what they were able to help Greg do. He holds up if you're watching on YouTube, I'm chuckling because Greg holds up that jersey and has a huge smile on his face, says I'm part of the team. It's a very, very cool thing that went on, and I think that's awesome on all fronts there. So hat tip there to the entire Falcons organization and to the Brooks family for making that happen, and to Ryan Clark for the part that he played in that as well. RC kind of narrated it. If you missed it, you can check out the entire video there at ESPN.com. We've got a little story up on LouisianaSports.net about it as well, so you can go and read it there. But just something that crossed my radar actually this morning, because Matt posted it in our group last night, and I woke up and saw it this morning, and just thought it was very cool. Wanted to mention it here at the end of hour number 1. So awesome job to all involved there. All right, God, that's as fast moving hour as I can remember. Open the show talking about LSU's running game. I put some statistics behind what we saw on Saturday. There's a story up on LouisianaSports.net about it. If you want to go back and listen to that, you can. Hunt on LSU is where you can find it. Wherever you find your podcast, certainly on YouTube as well. Kellen Moore impressed with Spencer Rattler's high-level play. There's some numbers that are really encouraging with Rattler over the last 2 weeks of his play there at quarterback for the Saints. So you can go listen to that or read about it. Ross Jackson's piece at LouisianaSports.net. And shout out Glen West, Go 24/7 for giving us a little bit of time. All that is on demand. Search Hunt Palmer Show wherever you find your sound. Want to remind y'all as we go to break here at the end of the hour before we get to Colin Jeter, tonight, Sports Trivia is back here in Baton Rouge. Did it for 10 years at Pluckers. Had a quick stop at Pizza by Roan's as well. We're cranking things back up at Court to Table on Burbank. It's an incredible facility, Awesome spot. We'll be there. Sports Trivia starts at 8 o'clock. You want to get there a little bit early. They've got awesome food. You can get something to eat, something to drink in the bar area as well. You can play some cornhole. They got a great outdoor area. There's an awesome place to hang out and stretch your legs. You can play pickleball as well, obviously, at Court to Table. But we'll be doing trivia 8 o'clock to like 9:15, 9:30. So not going to have you there all hours of the night. We'll have you out of there by 9:30. You can win gift cards, get something cold to drink, something great to eat, and do your sports trivia, test your sports trivia knowledge. I've got 4 rounds done already. Still got to do my LSU football round this evening. We'll get to that. But that sounds like something you like to get into on a Tuesday. Come watch some games on TV. They got a great TV setup over there as well to watch baseball and football. Come out and see us at Court to Table for Sports Trivia tonight. Hour 2 is coming at you quickly. I got Colin Jeter from the LSU Alumni Association, former tight end, with us at 2 o'clock. Sharif Ishak talking Saints at 2:30. Also hear some sound from Brian Kelly yesterday. So a lot to do. We'll pause for national headlines with Sports Center, and we'll come back with Hour 2 of this Tuesday edition. Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.